Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the opportunity to speak. I'm also happy that my colleague from Missouri has left because I was a 245-pound lineman and linebacker. So anyway, but I guess the only thing and I'm not trying to make any points here today, so I don't have any bones to pick other than one for Latin. I think you were looking at post hoc ergo propter hoc. That's the logical fallacy that I was thinking that you were thinking of when you were thinking of after this, therefore because of this.
You got it, and what's really embarrassing about this is back in 8th grade, I won a Latin competition.
Oh, okay. Okay. You know, I listened to all the testimony today, and I think there's a lot of goodwill, I think, trying to figure out how to treat smaller financial institutions differently, and whether the exemptions that exist now in CFPB are robust enough really to handle their problem. And it seems that the testimony here is saying, no, they're not. You know, they haven't gone far enough. Now, Professor, why don't you comment on that? Because I think that's what we're getting to here, that you can't treat a bank that's, you know, with an M the same as one with big B. You know, when you talk about 60 billion or 60 million, I mean, they are different banks.
Oh, absolutely. I would agree with you. I mean, I think I'm trying to make there are 2 points I'd make. First is, yes, there are real, regulation causes difficulties for smaller financial institutions. It's not their main problem, but it does cause difficulties for them. We should be thinking about ways to ease their regulatory burdens. We need to do it, in a way that it doesn't cost consumers important protections. And the current way regulations work, it's not right now. We have a table full of representatives of regulated depositories. They're not the only actors in the market. There are also non-banks, and those non-banks are subject to the same statutes. So, for example, the qualified mortgage rule, which is an exception to the ability to repay standard, that isn't just for banks and credit unions. It's also for the hard money lenders that have historically been rather predatory in their lending. It would be, I think, a totally reasonable thing to have to make clear by statute that the CFPB could exempt regulated depositories and credit unions of a certain size from rules. The CFPB doesn't think that it has that authority currently. That would be a sensible way to proceed, and then let the agency exercise more discretion about this.
Well, I think we need to look at that because I listen to Mr. Fenderson and I understand his issue. I mean, I think he's here saying, you know, we have a lot of people that I think I could really loan to, and the bank should be loaning to them, but I really can't at this moment. And the regulations that are on me are too rough. You know, I'd have to hire another person. It's very costly. I can't do that. I actually represent the border in California, and we have our own special set of problems there because of potential money laundering. You see, in fact, a lot of the big banks pulling out of that area because of those regulations. So I do think that there's something that has to be done, and maybe there is some middle ground here to be reached.
I think it's important, though, to look at the size threshold. $50 billion is a very, very large bank. $10 billion, which is often used, for $10 billion, you could buy the Cowboys, the Patriots, and the Giants and have some money to spare. Those are not, you own 3 different football teams. That's not a community bank.
No, I understood that. In fact, some of the questions.
Can I make a comment on that?
Yeah, of course, sir.
The assets of a $10 billion credit union do not represent the equity of a $10 billion credit union. So,
right.
So they're more like $1 billion in assets. They can't go buy the Patriots.
That's right. In fact, that's why the nature, I think, of the institution is important. And in fact, I think that's what they were getting to when the questions were being asked earlier. You know, is a $50 billion bank, a community bank? Well,
it looks a lot more like a community bank than a $1 trillion mega bank with hundreds of thousands of employees.
Thank you, sir. No, I do understand that, but I think that that's why the question was difficult.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Fenderson, you wanted to say something.
I would say, again, the emphasis has to be on the business model. Regulators are well trained to do their jobs. I think Congress can help make sure they're put in a lane where they get the flexibility to regulate us the way we need to be regulated based on our business model and the risk that we take.
I believe someone else had their hand. I don't.
Yes, thank you. In my testimony, I referred to credit unions being, regardless of size, a cooperative institution organized for the purpose of promoting thrift among its members and creating a source of credit for provident and productive purposes. There's not a thing in there that says I should be having to spend 25% or more of my time figuring out regulations and implementing them. Dodd-Frank gave CFB the exemption authority.
I don't want to cut you off, but I don't want to go over my time. I thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.